specifically for marriage and family life in Uganda. Because here we are assigning a minister of justice whose business is dealing with the many other issues, but not specifically dealing with the family. And there's been confusion whenever family issues come up in Uganda. Hey, Kale Minister of Ethics. I worked in ethics and integrity. They don't have mandate for marriage and family. It has to do with corruption. But people are concerned. They think it is Minister of Ethics. So there is confusion thinking that Minister of Ethics and Integrity has something to do with family. It doesn't. And then the Minister of Social Affairs, Labor, Social Affairs, Gender, Minister of Gender. Even you can hear the name Ministry of Gender. Now, gender is a subset of family. But yet we have made gender the bigger issue in this country, Mr. Chairman. So you find that even when you go to the Ministry of Gender and Labor, you find that the family division is a small department in somewhere like in the boys' quarter. And when you look at the funding of the family issues, you find that they are neglected. Because if we are going to make the family, I was talking earlier, there is need to have how many people enter into marriage, how many people are going to be of marriageable age, how many people's marriages broke down, how many marriages are in distress, what needs to be done to help those marriages, what is the ecosystem that provides support for these marriages, which include cultural leaders, which include religious leaders, which include families. There is no single actor who brings them all together. And so you find that the entire ecosystem of the family, we are like the different arms of the elephant without a singular elephant. So, Mr. Chairman, my number one recommendation is that we must provide this committee's report, should report to the Parliament and say there is need to provide for a cabinet minister of marriage and family, whose job is to wake up every day to ask those questions. What are the threats facing the family? Mr. Chairman, we have dealt with the threat of homosexuality. There is no way in the current system we can fight state actors. Last night, it was revealed that $4 million had been given to one LGBT group in Uganda to promote homosexuality. Just one group. There is no way a church, there is no way an individual can be able to deal with the levels of weapons against the family in Uganda. And so, people say that we have too many cabinet ministries. Look, we have a cabinet ministry for Karamoja. We have a cabinet ministry for the elderly. We have a cabinet ministry for Luwero. We have a cabinet ministry for every interest group. But how can we fail to have a cabinet ministry for marriage and family life in our country? Because all of these things revolve around it. So, to me, as we deal with, and I'm going to talk about other aspects of the law, but to me, what is overarching is a lacuna, an absence. There are countries which have a cabinet minister of marriage and family. They wake up every day. In our country, Mr. Chairman, we have problems of domestic violence. We have problems of bloodshed. We have problems of marriage, families fighting over assets. We have so many problems. But there is no singular person who wakes up every morning to say, how do we deal with this problem? There is none. The newspapers write about when marriages broke down. They laugh. VIP marriages are under stress. They laugh. And it makes news. Yet these are things that need to be done. We need, in the same way that the Honorable Sam Mayanja, who is the other for lands, Minister Nabakova, in the same way the Honorable Nabakova wakes up every day, and the Honorable Sam Mayanja wake up every day and saying, how do we deal with the land question in Uganda, which is a big problem? How do we deal with it in policy? How do we deal with it in its conflicts? There is no one who wakes up every day, who sits in the cabinet every Monday and say, guys, this is the state of affairs, this is what we need to do. And because of that, we are where we are. Things continue to escalate. We are dealing with highly funded people who want to destroy us, who want to minimize us, but we are not funded. So my number one recommendation is that. And I will give the... If you look at the documents that were given in the preparation of this bill, okay? The document on the preparation of this bill, can I have the cover page? The documents were, yeah, thank you, it's over here. The documents, if you look at them, the bill takes stock of several studies done on marriage and dissolution. These include the Kalema Report 1965, the FIDA Report of 1980, and Marriage and Divorce Bill, Ministry of Marriage, Ministry of Women, we have Domestic Relation Working Paper, Total Report. Now, if you look at the documents themselves, I'm okay with the FIDA. FIDA, this is a women's feminist organization for women's rights. That is fine. But where is the holistic report from the cultural leaders? Where is the report from the government that shows the status of the family? If I ask today, how many people are married, we can get the data from the census. Okay, Chris Bakiza can give that information to us. But what is the status of the marriage and family? How many marriages, how many divorces? Everywhere I go, people say, Pastor, do you know that there are so many single women in this country? I'm talking about the last 10, 20 people graduated. Pastor, I was in Gayaza. Pastor, when you spoke, Pastor, do you know that so many of us, younger professional women, we are single with children? Now, there is no single actor who is saying there is a problem here. We need to provide for it. And one of my recommendations is going to be that we must recognize polygamy, both in Christian, not only cultural, but also we must also recognize polygamy as an arrangement for the Christian community. Because there's a crisis. So, number one, we need a cabinet ministry of marriage and family. Number two, the second one is on types of marriages. Yes, please.
Very good. That's what I was going to advise. Because now you have very good ideas, but they may be lost out in the way you present them. Because I had you propose polygamy.
I'm coming to that one. I was just kusuna kokaton.
Concluded with the ministry.
Ministry is that, yeah, infrastructure. I'm dealing with the issue where you said this bill is to provide for. Okay? To provide a legal framework governing marriages. So I addressed the issue of governance as the first point. So governance. Proceed. So now I'm going to the types of marriages. So in the types of marriages, I will move quickly on that one. There is need to recognize, you talk about polygamous marriages. We talk about the Christian marriages, the solemnization marriages. I just want to bring on the issue of, in the types of marriages, we want to deal with the issue of the fact that there is no provision for Christian polygamous marriages. That this law is restricting Christian marriages to only monogamous. Now, I want to make an observation that when the Bible talks about marriage and family, it talks about both in its polygamous and monogamous state. It never makes an exclusion that this is this kind of, no, it's always Father Abraham, he had many wives, so many. David, he had, then Zacharias, the priest, this one. Then we have those who are monogamous. There is, to me, a current state where we are today as Africans, where we have been convinced by Europeans to think that polygamy is the worst thing someone can ever do. The same people are entering into homosexual marriages who are providing for them, and they have actually changed themselves. And many of our people here in Uganda had begun to accept that nonsense. But there is the parliament cannot decide that there is one kind of Christians. Now, I don't practice polygamy. I don't promote polygamy. My church doesn't teach polygamy. But I realize that there are others who are Christians who practice polygamy, who promote polygamy, who conduct polygamous weddings. But because they are currently illegal, the current framework hinders those of that theological persuasion, like Pastor Male. I'm sick. In Kenya, there is currently, before the Attorney General in Kenya is in court by one of the Kenyan gentlemen who's telling, look, the law hinders me from legally marrying my second wife, with whom I have 2 children. Because you are defining that the Christian marriage is only monogamous. To ask that we do not, the committee, the parliament has no business deciding who is a Christian. Because the parliament is therefore saying, for one to be a Christian, you must have only one wife. I've spent time on it, and some of my Christian friends, they think like I have 3 heads. Okay? But I'm a thinker and a philosopher and an African. And I have freedom to think of what is best for the family. Many of you and I know that there is a practice of polygamy because of the current state. People do it in secret. And it is when the man dies that you find conflict at the grave. Suddenly, wife number 1 finds that there's wife number 2, children of wife number 3, and then there's a fight over the family assets. And it becomes a big scandal. I would rather that this is provided for if there is a church, a Christian church, that and they are there, because now you have made them illegal. Currently, the law makes that Christians who officiate polygamous marriages are committing a crime. But that should not be. That should not be. So, I'm an ally, whereas others want to silence them. It is okay. Let those denominations that teach monogamy, like mine, we exist. But we should not silence others who want to practice what? And their theology. Because they say, look, there is enough theology. You cannot say, we have different kinds of Christians, Mr. Chairman. We have Christians who pray in tongues. Robo Shandara Baba. Then there are those who think that those who pray in tongues are of the devil. I went to America and I prayed in tongues. The Americans looked at me as if I was of the devil. They say, I mean, there is really. And I'm like, my goodness. We have Christians who don't practice family planning. Because for them, family planning is of the devil. They use fertility days. It is okay. Let them use that. But then there are Christians who practice birth control. Injectables, contraceptive. You can't say that because I use birth control, I'm not a Christian. So, I think this committee should make a very bold recommendation. And I'm making the recommendation. And you should speak fearlessly. Because you know that this issue is there. We also have a gender imbalanced society where there's more women than men. The Bible also makes exceptional circumstances. There was a time where men had to go and grab the women as if they are assaulting them because there was an arrangement of lack of married partners. And they said, we will not report to the police because it was a state of emergency. So I would like as a priority that in the provision of marriages, we should not discriminate. Mr. Chairman, it is always very painful for me. Now, I don't usually use emotions, but in speeches, there is logos, that is logic. There is ethos, that is the ethics. Then there's pathos. Pathos is the emotion. Sometimes we fail to share the emotion. 2 years ago during COVID, at Namugongo, because I've been doing research on this, Namugongo, the main celebrant, gave the parting remarks that said, if you have 3 wives, now the bishops have decided that this year you chase away 1 and you remain with 2. Next year you chase a second one. Then the 3rd year you will come back and you will have only 1. Now I cannot tell you, why do we have to separate families, break down marriages for people to be called Christians? I want you to see the injustice of this. For the purpose of a singular theology and a legal basis now, because you see some of the churches want to obey the law, the current law. But for me, I'm thinking of, let us amend the law. Let us provide. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure I will have, people have been telling me, Pastor, do not mention that thing. You are going to lose friends. Okay? But Mr. Chairman, I will say this issue for the purpose of governing society. This committee and this law is for all Ugandans. We cannot discriminate and say that those who marry more than 1 wife cannot be Christians. I can't say that. So that's a second point I would like to make a provision for this committee. And I'd like that issue because it's very, 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 very important. Number 3. So that was on types of marriages. Issue of, I'm going to come to offenses, but let me come on the issue of strengthening married life. But maybe it will come later. Offenses. One is, which is missing, is the issue of adultery. Adultery is not provided for in this law. Why? Because most of the foundational documents that you have on this law were written by feminists. And I will tell you that because I've debated the feminists on this law for 15 years now. This law has been coming back and forth. Now, feminists have a vision that there should be no illegality with adultery. That they say, if 2 consenting adults do whatever they want to do, nobody should criminalize it. This has been taught by our good friends, Professor Tamale and others, one of the major leaders of the feminist movement. And I know that right now they are litigating to have is a divorce marriage. There's a checklist. So in 2003-2004, Dora Byamukama, Honorable, Sylvia Tamale, Professor, Philip Karugaba, and about 2 others litigated that the penal code section that provided for adultery in this country was illegal. And so they used a very nice technicalese. You know, you can defeat justice with legalese, and said that the requirements of a man, and I want to bring this issue, that the requirements of the man were greater than the requirements of the woman. But you have to go back in the legal drafting that if marriages are potentially polygamous and a man could acquire another woman, if a man is seen with another woman, it could be the beginning of another relationship of an addition. But because having 2 husbands is illegal and taboo and ungodly, you cannot equate those. Those 2 are not there. So the law had been made to be aware of that fact. But it was cancelled. And I remember writing to the Attorney General and said, we cannot have a country where there is no law to provide on how to resolve domestic conflict. Mr. Chairman, I want to tell you today, the biggest problem today in our country is we are lawless in the area of resolving domestic disputes, especially around adultery. You remember recently that was it Enanga, the police spokesperson, was given in the news where there was a dispute. A very unhappy husband came and reported his wife. He was trying to get help from the police. He reported his wife. This man has taken my wife. I need police to help me. And that man must be commended, Mr. Chairman, because he did not use this one. Way. Huh? Some people use knives, some people use violence. No, he was using a lawful means. And then we are told, of course, this is with the support of a lot of money from some of these, the support. They said that police came and spoke, and it was such an embarrassment, that we as the police cannot be able to help anyone who finds his spouse or her spouse in adultery. People are free to adulterate. Go and resolve it yourself. You remember how that was. Now, how can an entire law, Mr. Chairman, an entire law which is addressing the issue of marriage and family fail to capture the biggest problem in this country? The biggest problem is not fights over assets. It is not types. The biggest issue we are dealing with as a country is we are dealing with domestic violence. We are dealing with bloodshed, but there is not a single provision on that issue in this law. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to suggest that fearlessly you put a clause that provides that amongst the offenses is the offense of adultery as it was envisaged. We had it in the penal code. It is not there now. We can't have a law protecting marriage and family, and there is no clause to protect that covenant and that clause. It should not be. You should not be washed down. Let us be who we are. We are Africans. We are cultural. We have religious duties, cultural duties. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move forward. I hope that point has been clearly made. We need a clause on adultery. But there is also a supportive clause which has been neglected in law. It is called the alienation of affection. The alienation of affection. Alienation of affection is a law that has been in jurisdictions, many jurisdictions for some time. It states that if someone seduces, uses their power to remove the affections of your spouse from you, you have a chance to litigate that person. Now, there are people who use their positions as bosses at workplace to seduce a secretary. There are people who use their positions of power, whether fame. I mean, recently we have stories where musicians, the musicians who are celebrities are sleeping with some, and you see how they use their fame to seduce and pull away. So I would like to suggest that we have a clause called the alienation of affection. This law is currently on the books in other jurisdictions, but it provides for spouses who are damaged. Imagine you have your wife. Imagine that she goes to work somewhere. Imagine that when she goes where she is, the boss, who is her boss, is using his opportunity as power relations to gradually seduce your wife, giving her extra pay time, taking her to travel with that particular person for foreign trips, giving boosts and other rewards. And in so doing, at the end of that, that person's affections are taken away. Mr. Chairman, alienation of affection. It must be punished. Then we can come and say, even if you are the big man. You see, this is going to bring fear in the big men and big women. Because these big men and big women are fond of using their big status to remove the affections of that spouse. A married woman and a married man must be seen as very important, which is why we wear the wedding what? Don't touch. Don't seduce. But we have many people say, Mufumbo, hey, the city danger. Now we need to put danger in the thing again. So that people say, yo mukazi Mufumbo, seja mukwatako. Seja Mufumbo, I will not touch them. That will put a ring fence to protect the emotions and the affections of that. That's a second. Now, the other, denial of conjugal obligations. Number 3. I want to address this issue as a person who has been married. Now, some of the people here may have never been what? Married. But I saw that you say that if a marriage is entered in and it is not consummated after 6 months, it becomes void. And I want to start on that point. You see, there is a recognition that sex is at the heart of a marriage union. And the denial of sex becomes a basis of breakdown. It is an offense. Denial of sex. But right now, spouses who are denied sex do not have any legal recourse. You tell a woman, you wife, I want to have sex. Oh, I have a headache today. You tell her tomorrow, wife, why don't we have the conversation of the elders? No, the children were crying. Oh, I'm sick. Oh, you don't have money. Oh, by the way, Mr. Chairman, the most painful ones is when they read you the list of what you haven't done. You say, Madam, why don't we have the other thing? He says, and now let me read you the 10 things. You have not paid rent. You have this debt. You haven't paid this year. And they go through 100 things that you have not what? For me, I think that if this committee is going to be bold, let us be bold and strong enough to say that, look, if a man or a wife asks the husband for sex and it is denied, that should constitute an offense. And we can even spell out how many times should people have sex. No, I mean there should be a minimum, like UCC has what is called minimum broadcasting standards. Okay? We should also have what are called minimum sexual union conjugal rights standards, at least 3 times a week. Men should enter marriage knowing that this is part of their conjugal duty, but leaving it in this absentia where sometimes the spouse may have different waves in the mind. Because there are times when one spouse really doesn't feel like providing sex, but it is terms of condition, duties. It is a duty. Some women don't realize that for men, sex is like food. They cook food for you, they give you the food to eat. Make sure msajja wange alye mmere. But then the mmere ey'ekisenge, the bedroom food, is not provided for. And you find people who are fellow pastors, their wives are not giving. They go to preach, but the woman has refused. Even MPs, you may find that. By the way, I'm not just talking pastors. VIPs, even non-VIPs, we have problems. So if we are going to direct ourselves on this issue, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a suggestion that there should be a minimum, just like you've said that, at least sex should take place within 6 months after marriage. What kind of marriage is that where there's no sex? So for me, harmoniously, and I'm speaking as a pastor, also as a husband, as a man, I'm saying that we should have sex at least 3 times a week as a minimum expectations of sex. Not harsh, realistic. Mr. Chairman, I think about people you are not aware, I think it's about 8 months ago, we have a very tragic story of a 100-year-old man in Kasese. He was married to his wife. These are elders. The elder kept telling his wife, I want sex. And the wife, who is a very old woman also, I think she was about also 100, so I will use the name. You can look it up, okay? He kept telling his wife, please, I want to have sex. And the old woman kept saying, I don't know what was the issue, but that issue was not provided for. Mr. Chairman, the man killed his wife. Now, this is very sad. Why did the man kill the wife? He told us clearly. The man told us, hey, I killed the wife because she refused to give me sex. And there is a big disconnect between how women and men view sex. Men can't sleep when they have not had sex. Women don't understand that. You see, this thing, the law must be rooted in science. I was watching a TikTok recently, and women know that. By the way, women know this thing. They say, "I've made him suffer. I've made him suffer." The man is turning around now. Some of these are young ones here. It is okay. A man turns around, restless, can't even perform at the workplace because the wife has denied him what? Conjugal rights. So we need to have the law, even if it is the woman who has been denied right. And the Bible says that when you take another wife, do not deny wife number one her conjugal what? Conjugal rights. I did not come to speak about the other. There is enough theology about polygamy and others. So, Mr. Chairman, I've mentioned 3. I'll give 2 main points on how to make marriages stronger. That needs to be, but on that conjugal issue is even employers.
Pastor, you have now 10 minutes within which to canvass the rest of your points.
Okay. Now, law has many benefits. Law has an educative benefit where it educates people. Law has a prohibitive benefit where we say, "Oh, no, I can't do that. That is a bad thing." Law has many benefits. But one of the things that I have, Mr. Chairman, I've thought about is we can't be unrealistic. The marriage and family life must be mainstreamed in all areas of life. That is, and family life must be mainstreamed. The same way we have in gender. Okay? Sometimes people think gender is equal to marriage and family. It is not. Gender having to do with the state of being male and female and their empowerment. Why should someone be a wife be deployed in Karamoja as a teacher and the husband is in Chisoro? And they are not given time to have time for family experiences. But because the job has been made more important and the job and the workplace is hazardous. So I would like to make a suggestion that in making family life, all employees must be responsible for making policies that strengthen marriage and family life at their workplace. Working long hours, deploying people in different places without recognizing that there is need for family life. What do you think? You send someone away for 3 years as a soldier to Somalia. Do you remember when our soldiers came back from Congo and they came back with babies, Mr. Chairman? They took them to Bombo. These are things we want to be embarrassed. But I'll tell you as a pastor, these are real issues. Because you have deployed your soldiers, you have deployed your employees in a place where they do not have access to conjugal relations. There is no workable means. It should be seen that there is need to provide for that. It should be provided for and say, look, as every company, every workplace must make provision that at its work policy is sensitive to the health of the family. That way committee hearings at Parliament will also be restricted, as you are restricting me, Mr. Chairman. Because if the Parliament goes on late, the employees go on late, they don't have time, there is no healthy family life, things become problematic. So in strengthening marriage family life, I'd like to have what I propose as marriage and family life mainstreaming. That is at the workplace, number 1. Number 2, in education. In education. Why do we expect people to know about how to do marriage and family the proper way if we have not trained them? We can't. It is as if we think there's a SIM card with data which is inserted inside this person on the wedding day. Plug and play. Now we have people who don't know how to play sex. And we have a huge industry of sengars. We have a huge industry, Mr. Chairman, of sexual boosters, semanya enlargement. These are all, witch doctors offering so many other services. But these are symptoms, Mr. Chairman, of the absence of providing proper education. So, without spending money, this law can all, in its educational environment, says we can demand that in all educational institutions, marriage and family life shall be mainstreamed. That way we make marriages and life stronger, Mr. Chairman. Ooh. Maybe if there are some questions that are going to be asked, but I would like to say, since I've seen my good brother here, Honorable Asumani Basalirwa, I saw that in this bill you provided that same-sex marriages will not be provided for. I'd like to add that we are still behind. Why? Because people are marrying. I saw a man married a crocodile in Mexico. A woman married a tree. Another in Germany, they married dogs. So saying that same-sex marriages are not allowed, it is only just one of the problems. We need to expand it and include no marriage, any marriage for any other gender, any other, even dogs, animal, what? There's a word, someone married the river, that have married the river. What kind of nonsense is that? So I would like to say that in the wickedness of some of these Western people who are enforcing on us, we must be involved in that, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take a break now, and maybe we can have questions and answers.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Pastor Ssempa. I argues that the minister responsible for this bill should not be the Minister for Justice. He argues that we need to have a minister responsible for marriages and family life. A docket, a specific docket to manage matters relating to marriages and family. Specific minister for marriages and family life, something of that kind, and not be lapped up in a Minister of Gender or a Minister of Justice, such that there is someone who wakes up, or people who wake up every morning to attend to matters of family. The second matter he has canvassed is, he has said that the bill only provides for a monogamous Christian marriage. He says that is not true according to the Bible. The Bible has both polygamous and monogamous Christian marriage. And therefore the bill should also provide for a polygamous Christian marriage. I hope I captured that very well, Pastor. The third issue the pastor has canvassed, he is shocked and surprised that the bill does not provide for criminalization of adultery. And yet, for him, this is the biggest problem. So, he says there should be criminalization of adultery, because this is where the problem is, according to him. So, the offense of adultery, and he said it rightly, it was removed from the penal code, so we need to put it in this law, according to him. The other issue, which is issue number 4, is denial of conjugal rights. Says this one should be very, very specific. Denial of conjugal rights should attract penalties, because marriage that's one of the cardinal pillars in a marriage. So he says denial should attract criminal sanctions. Yes, under the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I also talked about minimum broadcasting or minimum sexual coitus standards at least 3 times a week. Please, that should be included.
Yes. We should provide for minimum days, 3 in a week, where the couples should have sex. The other issue is mainstreaming family life. Says family life should be mainstreamed in all spheres of our life, in government, spaces, NGOs, private companies, and all other workplaces. Family life should be mainstreamed with a view that workplace policies, should be sensitive to family life. Having the husband working in Karamoja and the wife is in Kabale is insensitive to family life. So we should mainstream family life to ensure that workplace policies are sensitive to, they protect family life. And then finally, he has talked of forbidding all marriages that are unnatural. not only same-sex marriage, but marriage with the dogs and all those other things he talked about. So those are the 6 points he has canvassed. I now invite you to seek clarifications, if any. Now, Pastor, just in case you had...
You begin saying about criminalizing the...
Can you get the microphone closer?
When we talk about criminalizing someone because has not fulfilled the request of 3 times in a week, I think the other things are likely also to come, because many times these women are tortured, but when the men have not even paid the dowry, and they take people for granted. But the most important, as far as I'm concerned, Chair, the other issue, I'm not saying a no as far as having a minister is concerned, but when you look at the remedies proposed to deal with the defects, we find that the bill provides for Christian marriages, civil marriages, customary marriages, Hindu marriages, Islamic marriages, Baha'i marriages. You find that it is loaded. So it would be difficult, as far as I'm concerned, to have a minister to be overall, because all these people have their own laws already that we use when we are getting married. But when you putting this together, if there is a challenge and the minister to move doing that, it would be a bit of a challenge. Maybe we could use through the leadership of the religious leaders, maybe, because someone can say, yesterday you did ABCD, or you agreed on this in this religion, and now here you are changing, so it can bring a lot of conflict. But other than that, I want to thank you so much for your presentation once again. Thank you.
Pastor Ssempa for his submission. Very interesting submission. Just following from what my honorable colleague has just spoken. I think the law was set on a wrong path. It was set on the path to protect religious institutions, other than a legislation to provide for how marriages should be dealt with in Uganda for Ugandans. Because when you hear about Islam, it's about the Sharia. It's about the hadith, the teachings of the Prophet. And that is a foreign religion here. We are just basically leaving a mass of people to be recruited into foreign interests. That's how I would put it. You look at Christianity, it was purely a tool that was used to transport Western politics in order to resource themselves. In actual sense, what is it that religion offers, a Christian offers an African? So when you look at the law, there's no provision for the Karamojong marriage. That, I think, needs to be captured in the law, so that then it fits in to allow a Muslim to live comfortably like a Karamojong, to allow a Christian, other than Ssempa and his group, to go over and have a second, third, fourth.
Information.
Just a minute, let me, okay, provide.
Yes.
So the point is that we seem to be stressing more of what does not provide and meet the requirements here. Because the question is raised is valid. If I chose to become a Christian because I wanted to believe in something that has been said, but I want to do something else differently without leaving Christianity, I think that provision needs to be given in. The only difficult bit with the story of Ssempa is that this timing of saying that people, I think we will be taking the law too far. If you begin to say that people should have sex 3 times, is it 3 times or 3 days in a week? What's the basis? Because none of us knows what is happening outside there. I will tell you a story where one time a woman, when I was working for Uganda Wildlife Authority in Semiliki, came to the morning fire, and we saw all the rangers coming, and she said, I am the one who has called this meeting. Why have you called this meeting? That since I married this man, for the last 2 years, I have not slept. I do my daily chores as a wife, and after supper, this man is on me up to morning every day for the last 300, I don't know, 700 or 1,000 days. So there are a lot of challenges outside there which we are not capturing. So what would be the basis of us? How many Ugandans, how many women actually have an underdose that you propose the minimum should be 3 in a week? I think we need those facts so that then it can guide us. Otherwise, it will be wild for us to buy an idea when you could be talking of just your neighbor in Makerere or something. Thank you.
We're also joined by the chairperson gender, the Honorable Agnes Kunihira, is here with us.
Pastor Ssempa, for the presentation he has made. Basically, you have introduced a new term of criminalizing adultery. As a committee, Honorable Chair, we need to think more about it, and I will see we can go into details or into deeper how we can insert it in the bill. And secondly, about you have given us an insight about people who are marrying animals. Yearly, Chair, it also is a good insight, which we need also to think about. My question there to you, Pastor Ssempa. So, what is your comment, like a clause in this bill, like criminalizing holding out as if you are married? I think you can give us a comment on that. And secondly,